So by now, you already understand why I think taking notes is really, really helpful, and it worked for me. But a lot of people don't agree with me. They think that taking notes is a waste of time because given that you have a restriction of time in the IELTS exam, you have 60 minutes for reading, you have only one time listening, and you have 60 minutes for your writing, and you have just like 1 minute to prepare for your speaking part 2. And that is not enough time for taking notes and answering the questions. If you haven't tried taking notes, you cannot tell me that it's not good. It's not, helpful at all, right? Because you haven't tried. How do you know if you haven't tried? Now, if you have tried, but you have not been able to use this step and you have not been able to see the benefits of this step, maybe you haven't done it efficiently. So let me tell you how you can do it. After listening to this, maybe you change your mind. So when you're taking notes, remember a few following rules. Rule number 1, no sentences, only bullet points. The idea of making notes is for you to understand, not for you to impress anybody because nobody's going to read your notes, right? When you write a sentence, you tend to focus more on grammar, on vocabulary, on the structure of the sentence, and you don't focus so much on the meaning. And also, it takes a lot of time to write a good sentence, but it takes even less than a half of that amount of time to write some bullet points. So that is why when you take notes, you can save time by not writing sentences, only bullet points. Rule number 2, take notes with the same words that you hear and you read. Here's the thing. When you are taking notes, you are not trying to impress anybody. You're not trying to impress the examiner with your lexical resource. That is why you don't need to change the words. You don't need to find synonyms of the words. It's not a synonym game, right? Now, in reading and listening, you will not see the same words as what you see and what you hear, but you will see the synonyms of the words. So after you have written down the words that you read and that you hear from the recording, you know that these words will come in the questions, but not in the same form. Maybe a synonym, maybe some acronym, things like that. But they will come because they are keywords. Main idea, right? It also gives you the idea of, okay, what you should look for, what you should really think about when it comes to answering the questions. And in writing and speaking, you can take notes with the same words that you see in the cue card and in the task, but you can also, at the same time, create a list of synonyms for these words. It will help you eventually because you will return to your draft to look at the words, so you don't have to think anymore when you are writing and when you are speaking. And I think it's very convenient. Rule number 3 is use acronyms. There are, of course, very popular acronyms, and you can use the acronyms that you know in your notes, but you can also create your own acronyms. For example, for me, I don't write about as about, okay? I write ABT to represent about, and instead of writing tomorrow, I just write TMRW. That's how my writing is, and I know that. I understand it, right? I understand all the acronyms that I created. It's not your job to understand my acronyms, but it's not a job to read my notes either. So I don't need to make sure that you understand what I write in the notes. But it is time saving because you don't have to spend a lot of time writing words. Like tomorrow is kind of confusing to write. So yeah, just a little bit of an acronym can help me save some time. And I don't have to spend a lot of time thinking, okay, is it wrong spelling? Is it right spelling, like that? Rule number 4, mark the gender and the name of the speaker. In IELTS listening, you will most likely hear a conversation between at least 2 people. Sometimes it's a little bit confusing because you don't know which information came from which speaker. That is why you should note the name of the speaker, or if you can spell the name, you can note down male or female, like that, so that you know which one is saying which. It is very helpful because some questions actually ask, Mr. A says what, Mr. B says what, or Alice says what did Alice say about this and that? So knowing which one is saying this piece of information would help you understand it and would help you answer the questions. And rule number 5, do not ignore the details. Now, I know that when you take notes, you tend to focus on the main idea, you tend to focus on what is being said again and again, but sometimes one simple detail can answer the question for you, especially in IELTS listening. That is why I do not recommend you ignore the details from the recording as well as from the text that you are reading in the reading exam. So those are the rules for you to try for the taking notes process. If you haven't tried taking notes, maybe it's time you did. And if you haven't tried taking notes based on the rules that I talked about, also it's time you did. Because if you haven't tried, you cannot say that it's not working. However, I am not saying that taking notes is for everyone, because something that is working for me doesn't mean that it will work for everybody. There are so many techniques and so many skill sharpeners that you can try, but maybe you can try taking notes with me, because in my opinion, it is not only helping you in the IELTS exam, it's also helping you in learning English and any language in general.